So we have a really interesting topic today that we hope you're exceedingly inspired by. It's going to include a little bit of an exploration of, I'm going to say, an inner meditation. But to begin with, we want to just touch on the topic of the nature of movement and rest. And what we're going to be looking at together collectively, and we know usually that the live and learns are Eric and I speaking and you guys listening, and there's a little bit of interaction. Today, we want you to be as active in the chat as you feel as things come up, because we're investigating, and we're investigating something that in some ways might be one of the more complex part of our humanness and our body being. So movement into thinking and movement into the dissolving of otherness can be perplexing and a little challenging to distinguish at first. And again, the context of this conversation is all specifically as it relates to a reconnective healing experience. Nothing in the discussion today should be considered, a rule of law or physics. We're really exploring the nature of movement and rest in relation to the reconnective healing experience. So let's sort of center ourselves in that way. The other thing we want to present as a truth is existing as presence isn't something we create. Presence isn't something we actually create. Your infinite presence, our infinite presence, has always, always been there. It is the is of self-aware versus the activity of being aware. So just take a moment to digest that in a thinking way, and then we want to release it as well. So Eric's going to repeat that because my words tend to kind of run together.
Well, really, your isness. It is the is of being self-aware. Okay, versus the activity of being aware. And we're going to discover or play with being in greater awareness of our isness.
So the first thing we want to deposit, maybe is the way to think of it, is that thoughts audition for our attention. Even now, you're all tuning in, you're listening. Thoughts are what ultimately are the natural coming about of the mind, and they vie for attention.
They're all jumping around and dancing in the stage of our cognizant minds going da-da-da-da-da-da, calling me.
Yeah, and memories, and really the deepest form of feeling, pain, pleasure. Thoughts are consistently running. So if we step into the idea that, or the statement that sometimes we hear, sometimes we have even used, I am not my thoughts. I don't really exist. At the cognitive face value, that really doesn't work for most of us in understanding. As seekers, we need to recognize that there is a difference between what I think I heard Muji say, a great discovery and a strong teaching. And I want you to kind of reflect. Many of you, again, are professional therapists. You're in physics, you're engineers. You come from very strong backgrounds where discovery and creativity is an integral part of your daily life. And yeah.
So the question that then pops up in our minds, or in our minds, can be, how can we recognize the difference between the movement of thinking versus the movement of being aware that you are aware?
And let's even say that again. How might we recognize the movement of thinking versus the movement of being aware that you are aware? Interesting, huh? So we would suggest that the Reconnective healing experience is a portal for this recognition, even without cognitive knowledge.
Especially without cognitive knowledge.
Okay, you have to elaborate on that.
Well, because what happens is with the Reconnective healing frequencies, the experience of the energy, light, and information, our thinking, well, for some of us, if we're really trying to follow it with our minds, sort of begins to disappear, but in actuality, it just disappears.
Eventually, the Reconnective healing experience reveals what I like to think of it as a very natural experiential recognition, and then a natural confidence that accompanies it. So this is something that for those of you who have had a Reconnective healing experience or have been exploring this relationship of receiving energy, light, and information, the natural recognition appears and a natural confidence unfolds. And usually that isn't happening through cognitive understanding. It isn't happening because you're learning it. Quite the opposite. So movement into thinking is unconsciously our embodied habit of attention at work. Yeah. It's the working, unconscious, embodied habit. But please recognize that even our dear friends who study the neuroscience of mind so intricately will tell you it's not something that you're doing. It is happening. Thinking is just happening. So I'm going to suggest that and you've heard me say these over the last few conversations, it takes a lot of energy to be a person. What is a portal? It's a doorway to transformation.
It's an expansion of our online essentials, our level 1, an 8+ hour e-learning course.
The portal helps us discover our roadblocks that may be stopping us from living our fullest potential.
How does the portal help bring about these benefits? Easy to follow short segments with interactive exercises, information acquired not only through the mind, but through interaction with the frequencies themselves. It includes the 8 hours of the online essentials course,
2 key chapters, one on love and one on healing from the new series, The Inner Compass. It brings the possibility for instant transformation, healing, and the evolution of each and every one of us. What do we mean when we say that? It takes a lot of energy to be a person and yet not to be the true self. That doesn't require a lot of energy. So the I am.
Well, would we look at that as being a person is really being this earthly expression of the essence of the truth of who we are, and who we are is at ease.
So I would say it's the finite identity,
right,
is really a lot of work. I mean, think about one's own life. And I don't mean that in a negative way. You know, the idea of evolving and unfolding, and for many of you, your parents, your fathers, your mothers, your sisters, your brothers, your teachers, this personage that we are experiencing, and again, in Reconnective healing experience, we would say it's energy, light, and information experiencing itself as each of us. Very important. But the I am the body idea is sometimes so strong that perhaps let's acknowledge and suggest that the managing the movement of thoughts is worthy of a word or two. And I'm going to speak a little bit into something that I really loved that was spoken to me, which is let thoughts be. How about allowing them to just happen? Because that is what they do. While I am, remain a detached witness. In other words, if we think of our movement in the world of something so familiar to us, technology, we choose whether we're going to log in to information, right? We choose. Are we going to log into our computers? Are we going to log in to an account? Are we going to log in? And even in addition to that, we choose if we're going to subscribe.
Right.
I mean, so these are thinking choices. And when we don't log in or subscribe, we sort of rest in a place as that detached witness in a way. So the thoughts can come and go. There's almost no need to get caught up in the traffic of them. Nothing requires us other than habit, memory, and ego to feel the need to log in to thinking.
With our name and our password. Or to subscribe and become a frequent user and a content consumer, which really is us tending to lock into that particular interplay or relationship with those thoughts. It takes away our fluidity, because our fluidity occurs on a level other than that of the thinking mind at that level of attention.
So we can investigate the nature of habit and conditioning. And we do that a lot. We do that through intention. We do that through mind to matter. We investigate the nature of habit and conditioning even when we're not cognizantly investigating it. And a lot of our neuroscience colleagues really, again, spend a lot of time exploring the nature of breaking the habit of being yourself. Joe's book is just incredible. It is that nature that is always available.
But what precedes that habit? That's the question.
Well, the reconnective healing experience is that question. Can we investigate that precedes the nature of habit and conditioning? There is something already here prior to thinking. And this is where the reconnective healing experience becomes very profound. It is an investigation on what precedes habit and conditioning, memories, thoughts, feelings, emotions, even experience itself. And I think what we'd love to do for a few minutes is move through an experience, maybe you might think of it as a meditation, that allows us to explore that something that is already here prior to thinking. Yes?
I think so.
Okay. So for the purpose of the next few minutes, we'd love you to just put your pens down if you're writing with something, or your phones. Be a little comfortable in your sitting space, because we're going to close our eyes. So, are you comfortable? sitting, we're going to close our eyes. And as you close your eyes, just in that first activity of closing the eyes, pay attention to both thoughts and sensation. You might even open your eyes again and then close them again. But pay attention to both your thoughts and sensations.
And pay attention to how they interplay with one another.
For those of you who are familiar with the sensation of energy, light, and information, in whatever way with eyes closed that you choose, we'd like you to play with the frequencies. That doesn't require your hands if you're not wishing to use your hands, but we want you to begin to receive
And in the receiving, as your attention is on these sensations, allow them to build. Notice how they build.
Pay attention to sensation around you and within you. And see if you can notice body and mind. Observe body and mind. Now allow the sensation of receiving the energy, light, and information to build.
And as it builds, does the mind stay at the same level of your cognitive awareness?
Notice how strong the thought or the activity of awareness that I am the body is. Allow the sensations of the frequencies to pervade you wherever they move.
And simply be a witness.
In receiving energy, light, and information, there is an accompanying sensation. But that sensation also stimulates a bypassing of mind. If the sensations are strong, observe them as the release of otherness.
That's the nature of the reconnective healing frequencies, actually, as they bring about what we call the registers. These are involuntary movements, and whether they're large or whether they're small, this is their nature, to release otherness.
If your thoughts are loud, allow them to just be there, right there. There's nothing for you to do. Imagine the riddle, the cow that jumped over the moon. The cow that jumped over the moon, and let the moon be the mind.
Bypassing the mind in order to come to the
Yes.
quintessence, the quiescence, I should say, to peace, to rest, and letting go of the hey diddle diddle.
In rest, our attention is captured or led back to where the seeing, listening arises. Allow the sensation of the frequencies to expand. There's nothing to do. Your attention is simply to receive. In rest, your attention is captured or led back to where the seeing and listening is arising from. What does it feel like?
We can even experience the environment from where this seeing is coming from.
Sometimes the closer and closer to discovery you reach, there is a stone that gets thrown into a bush, a distraction. That distraction we'll call obstacle thinking for the moment. Allow it to be there. If it's loud, just let it accompany receiving. Observe the movement of thinking. Let it be there without pushing or sending it anywhere.
As you experience more and more of the sensation, observe yourself in that sensation awareness.
A very natural experiential recognition. The movement of being aware that you are aware. Allow the sensation of the energy, light, and information to pervade you. Your capacity to observe comes through your capacity to receive. existing as presence isn't something we create. Your infinite presence has always been there. It is the is of self-aware. This is different than the activity of being aware. Allow the sensation to intensify.
And in the is, there is no distance. In the is, there is no beginning, therefore there is no end. There is simply is.
What does that feel like? Gently open your eyes. And observe the movement of thinking, return, or heighten. Your capacity to observe comes through your capacity to receive in a reconnective healing experience. That lives in between can be the heart of all suffering, or ignorance in a way of who you truly are. So we'd love you to share a little bit, those of you that are choosing to, in whatever way this experience of movement happened for you. Again, we're exploring the movement of thinking and how we distinguish that from the is of being self-aware. So who would love to chat a bit about this? And remember, Reconnective Healing Experience is personal for each and every one of us. Cease, I'm going to turn it to you since we can't see the chat.
Okay, I'm looking at, there have not been any shares in the chat.
Okay.
We do have a hand raised. Nancy, please unmute.
Like you to, okay, that was totally blissful. I had like no movement. I could feel myself drift into blissful oblivion. And then, Jillian, you introduced the damn words godly, ungodly, anti-God words, ignorant, and something else, and it just shook me back to this reality.
Uh,
Just choose to be, unsmart, not intelligent. Don't label me and us and yourself anti-godly by saying unintelligent word like ignorance. We just don't have the knowledge of something. So I had like no movement and then shocking movement. I didn't appreciate it. So that's my comment.
Thank you for sharing, Nancy.
Nancy.
I really, I would like to just clarify that my statement was at the heart of all suffering is an ignorance of who we truly are. Not that we are ignorant, but that at the heart of suffering, there is an ignorance of who we truly are. And so please recognize, and Nancy, I'm so aware of the sensitivity that words carry for you. So allow the thinking here of how you received that statement to be as fluid as possible, okay? Really, I'm so aware that that comes up for you, and I don't want you to be jerked out of peace and love, okay? So
Thank you. We have a few other hands raised. Nancy, Sandy, please unmute.
Hello, everyone. Jillian and Dr. Eric, I'd just like to share that I felt a vibration all around me initially. My mind went pretty clear pretty quickly. And then, these experiences are hard to put into words, just like a reconnective healing session is. But I felt like I was almost in space, like I didn't feel my body. I felt vibration. I felt like I was probably just that is. I don't know how to say it, but I just felt like I was in this loving space, and that my body and my mind didn't really matter. Does that make sense?
100%. And I think the question that comes up in exploring this movement and the two ways in which movement occurs, did you feel that the existing, we'll say as presence, was something you created, or that it was there and it had always been there?
I believe that it was there, and it's always been there. Like I said, initially I felt my body vibrating and my fingers were moving, and then it just expanded out where exactly what you just said.
The cow jumped over the moon. Okay. We can be so respectful that thoughts audition for our attention in a continuous, unending stream of activity. And
I did have that.
Yes. Okay.
I did initially have that. I'm at work, and I initially was thinking of what all I had to do yet. But then I was able to let that take over, and it dissolved.
And many things audition for our attention. Even if we look at Veronique, who had a headache, she says, and that disappeared during this experience, this meditation of a sense of sorts. And see, what I find with the frequencies is wherever our thoughts are for me, thoughts seem to disappear, to vanish, and all the things auditioning for our attention. I love that example. seem to disappear with it as we allow.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess I would raise the question, the idea of allowing. One of the things that I notice about RH experience is that whether we're poised to allow it or not, it happens. The infinite presence that has always been there becomes greater than the activity of being aware or the movement of the thinking mind. There's a bit of awe and wonder in that, for me, in that knowing that no matter how much I perceive the identity of my thinking mind, it will never be greater than the existing presence that I am. And it doesn't require work.
Now, this was an interesting perspective on this interaction. Veronique says, it's a sensation of emptiness and fullness too. To be here and there in the present moment. Interesting. Beingness in this state of infinity and of awareness. Love that state of oneness and two-ness. My senses were wide open too.
Beautiful. We have another share, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to unmute?
Jen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I raised my hand before Sandy when Nancy was talking. I can't remember exactly what I was going to say, but I did want to at least say thank you, because that ignorance that you were speaking of has been very evident to me in my human experience lately. And I felt just now during that exercise almost like I was sleeping, like the finite I did go to sleep. And I know I wasn't really sleeping because I didn't fall out of my chair. But thank you, because it was a reminder that all of the narrative that I've been connecting with that's not serving me is just narrative. It's not important.
And what a beautiful way to use the thinking mind's movement, narrative. It's an interesting way, because any narrative comes and goes, right? It isn't existing as its own entity, if you will. It is the cloud that comes in and leaves, returns. It is the wave that comes up and returns to the ocean. So our finite sense of I am a body, I am a mind, I am a person is a narrative. It's a narrative, and it is an important narrative, but it is not more important than the recognition of our infinite presence always being there. We would never choose one wave or a series of waves over the entirety of the ocean. We would never choose multiple clouds, no matter how beautiful. I mean, clouds can be the most mesmerizing experience, but we would never choose them over the sky. And I think likewise, this is the value that we investigate. This is just an investigation. When the cognitive face value of recognizing that we are a finite experience serves us. It serves us so beautifully to dissolve the desire to have that level of specificity define our life experience.
Specificity can't define the infinite. Sometimes specificity, see, this is part of what I discover as I watch and observe people try to explain reconnective healing and the energy lighted information. The greater the specificity, the less the grasp. The greater the certainty they have of their specificity, the less the understanding is whatsoever. It's counterintuitive initially, because we're taught to explain, to understand, and to give detail, and yet what is of the greatest value in its limitlessness absolutely cannot be explained in that fashion, may only be experienced.
And you know, Jennifer, I think of you so often because you move through so much between, you know, your commitment to reconnective healing and kids and your own peace. In some ways, we get to choose to unclutter ourselves from the accoutrements of identity. This is the moment that we're in. And even when we look at this exceptional period of human history, I mean, most of us in this group are not more than 100. We're not centenarians. I don't know if Stan's with us, but there hasn't been a witnessing of this collective pause or moment. I mean, this pandemic that, I mean, has stopped the most of the, you know, world from being in the world, in their identity, the way they've always known, up to 100 years of age. So uncluttering, what do we do in the most instinctual way when a space becomes so filled with stuff and noise and things and you know, we can look at that from a subject-object standpoint, but just what is our innate nature? We start to what? Unclutter it. We start to remove it, disregard it, evaporate it, dissolve, because the accoutrements that now have taken over our identity have become not useful, right? Mm-hmm. Or so it's perfect. We can't shame or blame thinking. It's happening. It just is always happening. Again, it vies for the attention of it. So it's a beautiful recognition to know the difference, again, between the movement of thinking and the movement of dissolving otherness that can be so easily understood, tangibly felt in a reconnective healing experience. It's that simple. Yeah. I could look at you all day long, Jennifer. I could just look at you and stare at you.
I feel the same way. At least I get to look at you two a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I know we have Harry's hand raised.
Yes, Harry, would you please unmute?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it remembered me a little bit like when I was a little boy. You're always running around and you have to learn things and you have to, you know, you're learning new things, you're fighting through life, whatever. But then you want to do everything by yourself. But then sometimes you're so tired or your stomach hurts or whatever, and then you just put your head on your mom's lap. And then you just relax and everything is okay for a moment. So you just surrender to the feeling that everything is okay. And then later you can go back to whatever you have to do. and it's like a feeling that everything is okay, and a certain kind of like peace that I don't know, like I'm really happy and grateful that that we can experience this while we live, because I've only seen it in a few occasions when people like are at the end of their life, or they're in the process of dying. Then you can see sometimes they can finally go like, they relax a little bit. And yeah, I think it's really nice that we can experience it like this.
It's
So, yeah.
it's so special to hear you speak into this the way that you just did. Even the sensation of, like you said, knowing that everything is okay. That reconnective healing experience reveals a very natural, what I'll say is experiential recognition. Then from that, a confidence unfolds. And it's that you and we and us as a community get to bring into and onto this planet. You are here bringing energy, light, and information onto the planet. This is the recognition that we're wanting each of us to have a sense of. There's only so much that we can bring into this experiential recognition. It isn't found in the words. It isn't found in thinking. It isn't often even found in feeling. So lying your head onto your mother's lap and being in the recognition that your infinite presence is always there.
And really, it also reminds me of, in basic, simple terms, love, the energy, light, and information. Call it God, call it the intelligence of the universe, or call it love. It disappears all the distractions, all the mind occupations.
So the question is, can we investigate that which precedes the movement of thinking? Can we investigate that which precedes the movement of thinking? It's something that is already there prior to thinking. And that's part of what we wanted to explore in this Live and Learn today.
And it's funny, Harry, because in your sharing, I can feel my grandmother's arms, both of my grandmothers, the difference in temperature, in feel, and my mother's arms and my mother's legs. These are things that just never are gone. Sometimes, like the blue sky, they can be obscured, but they're never not there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have one more hand.
Please.
So, Melanie, would you please unmute?
Yeah, I know.
Hey, everybody. Harry, Eric, that was beautiful. Yeah, you almost made me cry. I rose my hand because...
Almost, right?
Almost, yes. I got to work, I wasn't able to actually, shut my eyes and do the meditation like I would if I was, alone, because I'm in the middle of a tattoo. So...
But it could be a very tattoo.
That'd be kind of fucked up, yeah. So I follow along in my own little way. I do everything a little weird. But I was listening and pretending that my eyes were shut, but drawing at the same time. And it's like, that's what I already automatically do. And I didn't realize it when I'm doing art. It's like, I don't think. There's no thoughts. There's just a doing and the action of the creation. Like I'm literally watching the needles lay the ink as I'm hearing Jillian's words, and I'm already there. You know, I'm there waiting on everybody because I was there 2 hours ago when I started this tattoo. Like that's what this is. This is a meditation for me. I didn't realize that until just now. Like that's what this is. Every time I do a tattoo, I'm connecting to that. I'm in that space, immediately in that space with no effort, no thought. And matter of fact, when I add thought to it, it's distracting. And it was wonderful. I appreciate y'all.
We appreciate you. How's your client feeling about this right now?
That doesn't bother me. It's fine.
He said it don't bother him at all.
You know, there are a lot of things that we do that are meditation. Oh, nice.
Look at the confidence.
Very cool.
Look at that.
It's some hours into this, but we're going to be working forever. So
That's the cow jumped over the moon. Go, Melanie.
But you know, a lot of us find meditation in ways that we're just not aware because we're not thinking that way during meditations. It could be simply ironing. It could be on the golf course. It could be in many different ways, something that takes us out of a certain kind level of thought and brings us into just what seems as if a different space, that a disappearance of distraction and a disappearance of otherness.
And Melanie, when I hear you speak, I immediately sense the rest when our attention has been led back to where the seeing and the listening arises from. It is a recognition of that. That is the rest. That is to be aware of where the seeing and the listening is arising prior to cognitive thought or doing. And so all of these ways in which we're exploring in the LNL is to stimulate the investigation. And thank you for all of you allowing us to gather as this group of friends without judgment, without the concern of whether we're getting it right or not getting it right, or following a formula, or reaching a particular apex of specialty. And, none of these personal identities are a part of these gatherings other than our willingness to investigate and to share where it's comfortable with this group of friends. And it's been great growth for us. It isn't something we get to do
Right.
in our live trainings in the same way.
And we find really that part of what I love about this experience too, that takes place at a level outside of thought, is the neuroplasticity changes in the brain itself. And that is sort of in a sense, that's what allows for this experience. Or you might really, maybe more accurately as I think of it, that it becomes the result of this experience.
It certainly precedes all neuroactivity.
Absolutely precedes it. And that's an important point to make.
Or at least a wonderful way for us to decipher the difference of movement and rest. And that's where we'd love to turn it over to our life leaders, because I am sure we have sufficiently send them into a once again, the courageous act of these breakout sort of breakdown follow-ups. We love you so much. We so appreciate you delving in, and we're standing by.
And I think Cecilia has some sharing to do first as we leave.
Thank you so much for staying with us, everyone. We know we cherish the time that you share with us. Before our life leaders come in, I do want to remind everyone that those of you who are in the RLC All Access, this Saturday is our mini retreat, and that is at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We are going to hang on to the topic and subject that's going to be announced in an email very soon. But I will share with you, this is going to be very interactive. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we encourage all of you to be on time. And please make sure that you have checked your audio and video are set up and working, and that you're ready to go, because we are going to be interacting with each other in beautiful ways. So please make sure all of that is set before you join us on Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. So with that, I would like to, it is my honor to introduce to you our life leaders today, Katharina Seidler, Justin Victor, and Terry Larkin. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here with all of you for such beautiful sharing today. It's awesome. And I know that for me, that interaction with Eric and Jillian just really was powerful for me. And but before I share mine, I would love to hear from Justin. Maybe you'd like to share a little bit about how this just, interacted with you, because it really is that detachment, and that's not an easy thing to do, or at least I find it, happens, but love to hear your experience.
Definitely. I came in with a completely kind of physical approach to it with my training, movement versus rest. And so the way I saw it, too much movement, you don't have enough rest. It's the balance. But coming away from this, especially with the meditation, when we were focusing on our surroundings, I noticed I moved out of my thoughts into my heart. And there's a huge transition there that allows for a lot of healing and introspection that I think is critical, because when we're in movement, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly because I'll talk about it later this week. If you've ever heard of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, you can't know the speed and position of a particle at the same time. Why is that important? Well, if we're in movement, we don't know where we are. We don't know if we need to change, because we could be going in the wrong direction and we'd have no idea.
It's interesting how you said this. When I thought about the topic, I also thought about movement and rest as the person. And I had this Solomon quote in mind. No, the important thing is that you move, but this is really about very different kind of movement. And so I'm not quite sure I can actually describe what happened in the process of this experience, but it's just, I could observe the movement of thought actually only very shortly, because whenever I focus on the frequencies very quickly, there's almost no thought. But there were sensations. So it wasn't just that presence, because the way I understand this, the infinite presence is not a sensation. The sensation happens after. And so I guess the best way I could describe is just something that I realized that ever since my personal reconnection, I've been having these different sensations at the same time. And even when I'm very stressed or angry, there's always an underlying sensation of peace. And today in this process, I encountered that same peace becoming stronger, and there's a movement, and I found movement away from the body, like as if I could perceive outside of my body the vibration everywhere, which brought that peace, which is a sensation. But in that sensation, I could notice like the physical sensations, and it was always like a movement away from, maybe kind of like Sandy said, no, away from the body. And there was no thought, so not away from thought, beyond thought, I don't know. But the point of perception just kept moving. I don't know if, and then it kind of comes back to what you just said, no, with the movement, and you don't know where you are. I really didn't know where I was, and I'm kind of out there. So it's so interesting how you have this rational way of describing something, and I come from like the other side, and it just seems to like lock in,
That's a beautiful description, and yours too, Justin. I find everyone's thoughts and how this all, plays out in us. And I know that when Dr. Eric and Jillian started this meditation, in the just movement, my hands, I'm very much like you, Katerina, where, thoughts begin to just shift, except, for me, I can feel that change from my body and my mind shift, because all of a sudden my feeling is of utter confidence, and just absolutely puts me in a relaxing place. The confidence that it just is, that it's just there. And I went to breath right away, which is very often what I do as soon as I said, what precedes? And I kept thinking, I feel like the breath is what precedes my shift. And then that shift is going in through my heart, and my heart is somehow clearing out that mind. It reminds me of that phrase that I know Louise Hay used to always tell us, you're cleaning out your closet of your mind. And I can remember her making that statement and thinking, oh, what a beautiful way to put it, is clearing out the closet of our mind. But that's what I find that my heart seems to do when it all of a sudden begins to feel different, and the sensations, like as you say, those are our sensations. And then when Dr. Eric said, keep focusing more on the sensations, the more I did that, the more powerful they felt, the more relaxed I was, the more I could just let go. And that, that's a description of how it felt to me. But it's so interesting, I think, with the fact of all our interconnectedness, that in some ways too, when I hear your stories, I think, there's a little piece of yours and a little piece of yours and a little piece of yours that, hit my mind. There you go. That's flipped back to the mind, and putting those pieces together for myself. It's really, it's really powerful. Anyway, and I know we only have a few more minutes here, so I'm thinking that Justin, maybe you didn't quite get to. I think maybe you had a couple more things you wanted to say. So I would love to
talk all day about this. Honestly, it's going with what you said, Katerina, with the sensations. That's, I think, a perfect way to describe it. Let's step out of senses for a moment and step into the is, Terry, like you were mentioning. Because a lot of people discount the heart in this process. It's actually a stronger biomagnetic source than the brain is. And how relevant is it? Well, let me tell you, because we can tune into heart-brain harmony with a simple exercise, but we tend to discount that relationship. So for example, women, within the first about 180 seconds of meeting someone, they will know if that person standing before them is a potential mate and a partner. They will discount that. Weddings won't work out. There'll be a divorce later on. It really depends on acknowledging that. And I feel like it's so exceptionally important to just be aware of that, because even Deepak Chopra said, the awareness of thought is not a thought. It's the awareness is in here. It's in the heart. And one of my favorite quotations, I don't know where it's from, because when we step from the mind to the heart, we are kind of removing the others. So the student comes to the master and he asks, how do I help the others? The master says, there are no others. There is just us. And when we transition, I believe that is one of the most perfect ways we can get into touch with that.
What you say really opens a question for me, because when you speak the awareness in the heart, in the brain, it's the awareness of the person, like being aware that we're aware. But if I think of the finite mind, or of the essence of the all, the is, for me, it's awareness even outside the body, everywhere. Everything arises from consciousness, and consciousness is aware of itself as the things that arise. So I'm trying to get this together with the heart part, and I do think love is somehow, in opening up the heart, is somehow super relevant, but in my rational mind, I'm not in this place where I can get this together, really.
I think we're all still exploring it, but I know that we're going to have to go here. And, that love is just one of those things that we go back to. And I can remember Dr. Eric saying a while back how the sensations of the heart, the feelings that come out, that happen, are emanating from our heart. And the stronger they are, I believe, the more I'm able to sit back and be the observer. It just takes me, like you say, don't know where. You're not sure where we went. But yeah.
You know what? This we don't know where is really a nice experience.
Yes, it's a beautiful experience. And reconnective healing takes us there.
Out of that, from the movement of thinking to being aware, I just say shift your awareness to here. One of the best ways to do it, from my learning of traditional indigenous peoples, touch your heart, go from there, listen to it. You can step out of your awareness of thinking and your awareness, because this is where you can kind of be in touch with that and then expand from there. That's the best way I've been able to do it.
That is beautiful, Justin. Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing. And remember, we are always in motion, so there's always movement, and it is our finding that place of bliss in that space. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'd love to see you at the retreat this weekend. So namaste. We will see you soon. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. It was so great to see all of you. I love looking at all the faces and the little squares. Yeah.